Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are putting on our investigator hats and opening up a highly classified and frankly totally bizarre dossier. It's a collection of intercepted transcripts from what is described as an anomalous nether region, or as they call it, an infernal threshold. But as we comb through these testimonies from entities ranging from a human wizard to alien soldiers, we really have to ask ourselves, are we investigating an actual alternate dimension here, or are we just decrypting the darkest, most hidden corners of human behavior? Let's treat these transcripts as hard evidence and see exactly what they reveal about our own psyche. To crack this dossier, we're going to examine 5 key exhibits today: opening the infernal dossier, consuming the subconscious, the mirror of warfare, assassins of the future, and finally, the superorganism myth. All right, let's dive right in with Exhibit A, opening the infernal dossier. Our very first intercept comes from a human wizard. Now, despite having a nearly perfect, storied career, his hubris, his absolute ambition to push the limits of his reality, ultimately trapped him in this infernal realm. He attempted the ultimate spell. You see, he just wasn't satisfied with the physical world and the mental world remaining separate. He admits to his greed in the transcript, noting his desire to combine the physical with the psychological. He literally wanted to make the physical world an exact, unfiltered manifestation of the human psyche. And this brings us to the concept of qualia. Qualia is basically the subjective feeling of an experience, like what it actually feels like to see the color red or to feel the wind on your face. The wizard didn't just want to perceive qualia internally, he wanted to realistically project it outward, into the world. He wanted to completely erase the boundary between our inner minds and the outer environment, making physical reality an emblem of the psyche. And it was the catastrophic failure of this spell that locked him in the threshold. So, the crucial point for us as investigators is this. As we examine the rest of the dossier, you've got to keep this critical question in the back of your mind. If the wizard's goal was to make the inner psyche physically real, what happens when our deepest, most destructive psychological metaphors actually manifest? Are we dealing with literal monsters in these next exhibits, or are we basically looking at an autopsy of the human mind? Let's move on to Exhibit B, consuming the subconscious. Our second intercept introduces an alien creature with a truly chilling confession. This entity doesn't hunt our physical food. No, it feeds on the raw, highlighted moments of our consciousness. It literally eats memories, claiming that devouring them revitalizes its entire planet. And what does it do with that stolen potency? It returns to haunt us in our dreams, getting triggered by the slightest adjacent neuron firing when we're awake. Our investigation reveals some very specific feeding conditions for this entity. It strikes precisely when our conscious grip on reality starts to degenerate. So, when we are stuck in a monotonous rut, when we're asleep, comatose, or when fantasy and reality dangerously start to mix, that's when it pulls us underneath the psychological threshold, devouring the raw, ragged reality that's left behind. When we piece all this together, the evidence strongly suggests this isn't just some alien invader. It represents how our own subconscious consumes and recontextualizes our experiences the second we let our guard down. It's that creeping dread of our own unresolved memories eating away at our consciousness during our most vulnerable states. Exhibit C, the mirror of warfare. Taking a sharp turn into the geopolitical sphere, we intercept the testimony of an alien soldier. Now, these troops were sent to the eerie plains of Sui by divisive leaders, promised a glorious war against monstrous, faceless enemies that were supposedly besieging their psyche. But when they actually arrived on the battlefield, only one thing existed there: mirrors. Just mirrors replicated everywhere. The comparison here is just devastating. You see, the soldiers lacked eyes. They were completely blind. So when they fired their weapons into this realm of mirrors, their own projectiles naturally reflected right back at them. Because they couldn't see, these reflected attacks convinced them that they were indeed under siege by an enemy. They created a self-sustaining, dystopic nightmare entirely of their own making. The soldier realizes, tragically too late, that the true enemy wasn't an external demon at all. The true enemy was a massive cognitive error. They completely deviated from rationality, relying entirely on blind allegiance to the divisive rhetoric of their leaders. The infernal battlefield wasn't filled with monsters. It was filled with the lethal consequences of their own unexamined actions and profound cognitive failures. Next up, Exhibit D, Assassins of the Future. So, if the blind soldier represents our outward aggression, this next intercept represents the insidious internal forces designed entirely to annihilate possibilities before they even occur. The plot thickens with the testimony of a ninja, a shadow operative. This entity operates underneath the floorboards of our consciousness. It doesn't use brute force, it thrives on whispers and subtle constraints. It perfectly represents the quiet background forces, like societal apathy and internal doubt, that destroy our potential before it can even bloom. Cross-referencing this testimony, we map out a literal, step-by-step process of systemic annihilation. The ninja notes that hell is early, hell is often. To successfully maximize the destruction of a future, the constraint has to happen incredibly early. And perhaps most terrifyingly, this isn't some act of individual calculated malice. Organizationally, it is described as quite brainless. It's just the mechanical, thoughtless passing of time and the destruction of hope by systems that simply do not care. The ninja's confession forces us, as investigators of this dossier, to ask a profound question. We're always looking for evil masterminds, right? But does it actually take active malice to destroy a future? Or is our reality already infected by the same exact sociological, everlasting inferno, where brainless institutional apathy casually erases human potential every single day? And finally, we arrive at Exhibit E, the superorganism myth. In our final intercept, the hornet monster delivers a scathing, aerial critique of humanity. Looking down from its high perch, the hornet basically mocks us. We are glued to the land, heavily suffocated by biological determinism and chains. But the hornet points out something far worse, the severe cognitive dissonance that defines our entire species. We constantly think we are making choices for the collective good, but we are continually lying to ourselves about the real impact of our actions. The hornet goes right for the throat, directly attacking our human concept of asociality. We look at insects and we romanticize this perfectly cooperative, universally unified hive mind. But the hornet aggressively dismantles that idea. It reminds us that insects are still individuals, completely capable of parasitic intent and even killing their own host. The reality of insect society is really just a higher quantity of individuals agreeing to cooperate. But humans, the monster argues our superorganism is a total illusion. We lack true eusociality because our population is inherently riddled with psychopaths who are more than willing to sacrifice the collective for their own personal gain. And this brings us to the hornet's final, brutal verdict on humanity. We suffer from immense cognitive dissonance. We are plagued by psychopathy. Our grand civilizations and our so-called cooperation, merely an artifice, no different than a termite cathedral. Ultimately, the Hornets concludes that our civilization is a fragile facade, heavily dependent on our terrifying tolerance for immense collateral damage. This terrifying quote perfectly summarizes the core pathology of the human condition discovered in this entire dossier. Who cares if a few die, are neglected, or hurt sufficiently until broken, as long as most do not? Think about that. This isn't just an observation from some otherworldly monster. It is a mirror reflecting the silent, brutal calculus that underpins our own real-world societies. I'm closing the dossier for now, but I want to leave you with this final thought based on the evidence we've just reviewed together. Are we truly the cooperative, rational society we claim to be? Or, driven by our own blind mirrors, our systemic apathy, and our psychological hubris, are we already living in the infernal realm we've built? Look around. Which side of the threshold are we really on? Thank you for exploring this with me. Keep questioning the evidence, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.